Have you ever talked to a ghost? No? Well, my next guest certainly has. Can you explain what ITC is and how it differs from other forms of spirit communication?
Yeah, ITC, Instrumental Trance Communication, is not something new. It's been around for a while.
I had another dream where Jesus came into my dream and I was in a classroom-like setting.
The majority of the sessions that I do are for people's loved ones. That's like the majority that I'm doing.
How do you know you're not opening a door or portal or bringing in something demonic or evil spirit? Like, how can you differentiate? Have you ever talked to a ghost? No? Well, my next guest certainly has. Today, we're going to dive into the fascinating world of the afterlife and spirit communication with Joshua Lewis. Josh has spent the last 13 years uncovering ways to communicate with spirits using a blend of his intuitive abilities and cutting-edge technology. He's the author of Finding Hope in the Afterlife and the creator of the Hope Spirit Box app. Josh's work not only aims to connect people with their deceased loved ones, but also to help spirits find peace. Welcome to the show, Josh.
Hey, Nafsika. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
It's so exciting to have you here. This topic is extremely fascinating to me. I've had my share of paranormal experiences in the past since childhood. So you've dedicated a significant part of your life to instrumental trance communication, or ITC. Can you explain what ITC is and how it differs from other forms of spirit communication?
Yeah, ITC, Instrumental Trance Communication, is not something new. It's been around for a while. It started with guys like Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla. There's a brilliant Latvian psychologist, Konstantin Radovan. And these people, many years ago worked on, communicating with the other side, intelligent beings on the other side using different apparatuses and machines. It's really just using any piece of electronic, equipment, such as like a TV, voice recorder, radios. All of these things can be used for instrumental trance communication.
So does it use the white noise? Because I know you have your box. You're going to show us your box that you have behind you.
Yeah, my box is right here. I have it on the shelf there,
yes.
And it's a custom build. There's a different bunch of variations of spirit boxes out there. Some use radios, and some use sound banks of different sounds. White noise can be a part of it. Spirit needs sound to form responses. So to give you an example, if I had one of my voice recorders, which is just a normal thing you can go to a electronic store and buy, and if you would, you wanted to leave yourself a voice memo, or you wanted to, do an interview with someone, you would have a voice recorder, right? And that's not even a spirit piece of equipment. But if I wanted to speak to a spirit using that piece of equipment, that voice recorder, if they were able to talk on there, which they can sometimes, and that's called EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, you would hear it as a whisper. But when you use one of these boxes or one of these pieces of equipment, there's a tone to the spirit's voice. And so what it's doing is it's giving the spirit some tone, like an actual voice tone. And, they have to use sound to form responses. So that's really what's going on, kind of in a layman explanation there.
Wow, that's really intriguing. Because this is really interesting. So, because I've watched your videos, and you have like a couple different tools you use, right?
Right.
So it's not just the box. Yeah, go ahead.
I play with a bunch of different things. Like I said, I have the custom box that I built. I have the voice recorder. I will use an app that I've created, and the app is really cool because for the last 4 years I've released it to people for free to use it so they can test and try it. And I have people sending me recordings from the app all the time. It's been downloaded over 100, I don't even know. I think it's over 100,000 times it's been downloaded and used. And so people send me the recordings. And sure enough, they're getting responses just as I am. So this is not something that, only I can do or only a select few can do. Anyone can do it if you have patience, persistence, and you tune into your own connection. So, I'm using a bunch of different things. Sometimes I'm using visual cameras and other types of photography to capture visual evidence, not just audible stuff. So it's pretty cool.
So here's my other question, because this is like, again, like I said, it's a very fascinating topic. I've had my own little experiences, but how do you know you're not opening a door or portal or bringing in something demonic or evil spirit? Like, how can you differentiate?
It's a good question, and a lot of people ask that question. And I've been doing this 13 years. When I first started out, I didn't know what I was doing. So I was really trying to experiment and see what happens. Now, see, the thing is, I have a spiritual connection with my higher power. It's not religious; it's a spiritual thing. So, I feel for me, it's a connection to Jesus Christ.
Yes.
And again, it's not a religious thing because it has nothing to do with religion.
No.
But I feel very protected, and I felt protected 13 years ago, and I still feel just as protected, if not more. Have I ever dealt with anything that sounds negative? Yeah, there's been a couple times that, but it's been more of like a human nature that I've heard coming through. It's not like growls and scratches and, I think the whole demonic thing has been played up a lot because of movies and shows, and I'm in film production. I've produced 2 major feature films that have gotten full distribution, and one of them was a horror film, and so I get it, but my job is to show the reality of what the evidence is that I'm getting. And some people go out and they go to these abandoned buildings and they focus on negative stuff, and if they hear a response or they hear a sound, it's like, oh, it's a demon, and they start screaming and yelling and running around. And I think that's more for entertainment purposes. I do my sessions at home mostly. I have 3 beautiful daughters. I have a wonderful family. I have a blessed life. 99% of what I've captured in the last 13 years has been positive. It's been talk of love and light. Can someone come through and be an a-hole? Sure. They could. But it's just like on Facebook, if someone, or any social media, if a troll leaves a negative comment on your post, you can delete it and block them. And so we have the same ability to do that. We can, not pay homage to or give attention to anything negative, but it's extremely rare. So, I don't focus on that. I have a grounding exercise that I do. I give to all my patrons and followers and clients that get sessions with me. And they do the meditation. It's a 20-minute. And, we call down light and we ground ourselves to the earth. And, we really do feel very protected. So that's how it goes.
That's what I was going to ask you, like if there's like a protection prayer or meditation that you do beforehand. So there is something that you do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, there is. There's something that I give to everyone and then I do myself, and I trust in my higher power. And like I said, the majority of the sessions that I do are for people's loved ones. That's like the majority that I'm doing. I do ask for well-known people, which is probably what you've seen on my Instagram or whatever, is that, I'm asking for well-known people, and I'm doing that the same as I would do when I'm connecting to someone's loved one. So the same process. There's not special process because they're celebrities or whatever. I'm asking for them. I'm connecting to them intuitively, and then I'm asking for them to come through my box. And I don't know if I'm getting them yet, really. I'm seeing them in my mind's eye. I'm getting information. I may be hearing some of the responses. I don't hear all of what comes through. I have to really go back and listen to everything that I've got to see what I really captured during the session. But what it looks like is 90-something% of the time, if not more, almost 100. It's not 100, but when I go back and I listen to the evidence I've captured, the communication, I've got pertinent, relevant, detailed responses a lot of times that, are relevant to what this person would be saying, or information that's accurate to them. So, the connection method seems to work.
Yeah, I notice in some of your videos, you don't really hear them very clearly, but you after in your editing with your and when you're listening to the using your
Right.
tools and your app and your box, then it comes out more clear. So then that's when you add the subtitles on your videos, right?
Yeah, that's correct. There's a guy named Ed Primo. He's a very well-known forensic audio expert, and so I remember working with him briefly many years ago. I was recording messages on my voice recorder, and I was sending my recorder off to him to be analyzed along with the messages. And this is a guy that, again, forensic audio expert. So he's the guy that when the FBI would bug a nightclub, let's say a social club, and they're surveillancing a organized crime, and they record a couple of mafiosos talking about a hit or some kind of crazy thing, the FBI would then bring the audio to this guy, who would analyze it and then transcribe it. Okay, and so he taught me a few techniques on how to analyze audio. And so what I'll do is, again, I'll record my session. I'm hearing only about 20-30% of what's coming through in real time. So a lot of it, again, is that I just have to trust and hope that I'm picking them up well, and then I have to go back and I have to spend 2 or 3 different times reviewing the session with objective mind, fresh ears, different days, and listening and being patient. And I do that process like a forensic audio expert, and that's what I may not be officially one, but I've been doing this for so long that when you do something, you put over 10,000 hours in something, you start to become known as an expert. You know what I mean? So I guess that's what's happening. But yeah, and then I hear a lot of other people that go, hey, I don't know if I'm capturing anything with your app. I feel like I'm hearing something, but I don't know. Can you take a listen? And I'll listen to the recording, and sure enough, there's a few solid, amazing, clear responses. And then I'll send it back to them, and I'll say, this is what I'm hearing. And they'll go, oh, yes, I can hear that too. Some people have argued, well, isn't that kind of like the power of suggestion? Isn't that kind of like, sound pareidolia, or like the Rorschach effect, whatever? And, and I'll say no, because there's actual information we can get from that. And I'll give you an example really quickly. And this has happened countless times. And I use this example because it's in the preview video, the presentation I give that's on my homepage and my YouTube page, of my channel. But I had, I'll give you 2 examples. I had one woman asking for her father, and she asked her father in the session, hey, Dad, what was my nickname as a kid? And her name was Nancy. And so the dad comes through and he says, Little Miss Nancy. And we heard that very clearly. I heard her name. She heard the full Little Miss Nancy. And she goes, that's it. He just said it. It was Little Miss Nancy, Little Nancy. That was my nickname. So, he's able to give that information that only he and her knew pretty much. I had a follower named Kimberly. She had cancer. She contacted me, said, hey, I'm dying and I want my husband to reach out to you and ask for me when I pass. And I said, wow. Sure. And so a few months later she passed, and her husband reached out to me and asked me, and I said, sure, let me ask for her. And privately I asked for her, and we got some great responses. I got some, wonderful responses from her, and I sent him the video, and he was blown away, but he said, Josh, I didn't follow your work, so don't take offense to this. He goes, I hear the responses. It's amazing, but how do I know it's really her? And I said, that's a great question, and I said, you can ask a validating question if you want. I don't know if we'll get the answer, but you can, give me the thing. And so he says, all right, just ask her in another session what the term muskrat meant. I said, that's it, right? Just muskrat? And he said, yep. So I did the session. I asked her, I said, Kimberly, he loves the video, the session, but what does the term muskrat mean? And she said, it's in the back of my head, he had to shave my head. Those were the two responses that came through. That's it. That's all I got. Now, that came from the box. It came through like what the responses you've heard, where it's kind of got a little bit of an echo to it, and it's a little slowed down. So, I put the captions on it. I send it to him, and he texted me back. He said, those were perfect responses. Wow. And I said, what does that mean? And he says, well, she was, she had cancer. She was bedridden. She hadn't lost all her hair, but she would lay in the bed a lot, and the back of her head would get matted. And so I'd pick her head up, and I would try to brush her hair. And eventually we just had to shave her head. And I would call her my little muskrat. So again, it was like this very personal detail, and that happens in almost every session. So, if I would have given you those two responses to caption without captions, from me, would you have heard those two responses? Maybe. You probably would have heard head, maybe back of, or you may have made out just a little bit. But, because I've been doing this a long time, I was able to make out more. And so, the information is there to be validated,
That's interesting. And like I told you, I've been watching some of your videos, and I know you've been speaking to some previous, recently deceased celebrities. So we have Gene Hackman and Val Kilmer.
Right.
Tell me about that experience. I know you admired both of them, and you mentioned it in the video as well as you're talking to them. How was that experience for you? And just tell me about that.
It's always surreal because, first of all, I ask for people that I didn't know a lot of times. So, any soul is just as important as someone who is well-known or a celebrity. Clearly, if I'm asking for someone that I grew up watching on TV and loved watching, Gene Hackman is one of the best actors that ever did it, and I'm a big movie guy. Like I said, I'm in film production. I've done some stuff. So, I've worked with actors. I know what it's like. Gene is someone that I respected a great deal, and, asking for him and hearing, again, in order for this to work well, I have to intuitively connect. I am a trained medium. I've done over 3,500 readings as a medium with no equipment. So that's just doing a regular reading, no boxes, no equipment, just me tuning in. So if I'm able to tune into the person first, make some kind of connection, trust in that connection, and then I, then I go into my box, the responses coming from the box seem to be better, as opposed to saying, hey, I think I'm going to ask for Gene Hackman today, and then I'm just going to turn on my box and ask and see what comes through. I may still get a couple responses, but it's not going to be as strong unless I really connect. And, I heard a few things in real time, so I knew, and I was seeing him in my mind. So I knew, I saw his wife, Betsy. I saw things that I knew. And he was telling me intuitively that his wife died before him. Now, this was prior to any autopsy was released. So at this point, when I'm doing this session and releasing the video, we do not know who died, how anything happened yet. And so, I said, you're telling me in my mind that your wife died first. Is that correct, Gene? And then he says, yes. He says through the box, yes, that's correct. So he confirmed what he told me intuitively. And then a week later, the autopsy comes out that she had been dead for, a week prior to him. So again, that's confirmed. So that was a really amazing experience. He had some really wonderful things to say. And, I'm blown away. Same with Val Kilmer. I find that a lot of them, they're all okay. Some guys, like I asked for James Earl Jones, and, he was fine. Like, he lived at an old age, and he lived a full life, and he was, very good. Sometimes people get to the other side and they'll say, I'm okay. I'm in the light, or I'm okay. But please pray for me still.
Really?
I'm still working through something.
Huh.
Like there's still some times that I think people have this misconception that death is either heaven or hell. You're going to die, and you're either going to some fiery place, and you have to be a really bad person to do that, or you're just instantly becoming an angel or knowing, and not even an angel, but like you're instantly becoming like a knowing all being, and and everything's fine, and it is okay. But there is still a journey on the other side. There's still an afterlife process and a journey. And if we bring some of the things from this life over there, some of the regret, some of the doubt, some of the, resentment, maybe a little bit of anger, some of those things can happen where we can bring that with us, and we have to work through it. I think Val Kilmer had a little bit of that where he was okay, but he still was dealing with something, There is the woman that was one of the more well-known victims of Jeffrey Epstein that I just asked for, Virginia Giuffre, I think. Is it Giuffre or Giuffre? I think it's Giuffre. And I want to say her name right. And anyway, she was suspected of taking her own life. She said, "I'm still a wreck. I feel awful." I said, "Are you okay?" She said, "Yes," but she was still feeling some emotional baggage. Whether it was, suicide or there's another more nefarious thing that happened. People are kind of wondering, and I don't know for sure. She said no when I asked if anyone, took her life. She said no, but so there is some stuff, most of the people on the other side are okay, or they're in the light, they're around loved ones. They talk of having a divine experience, seeing God, walking with Christ. So there is some really amazing things that I've captured. But I think everyone's experience on the other side is there's some things that are the same, but it's just like here. If we both looked at a tree together and we both were told to describe the tree, you may describe the tree as being full and green and, tall. I may describe the tree as being more girthy, more, wide and rough with the bark. And, so there's different things. We're describing the same thing, but with different adjectives in a way. And I think that that's kind of
different perspectives.
It's perspective, right?
Yeah, this is something else I was thinking of while you were talking. I wanted to know, because you speak to these different spirits, and they're not all in the same place. And you've asked them, "Are you okay where you are?" So that's very interesting, because I often wonder, have they? Does everything go away? Are they still working out their problems? So I guess it looks like some people are still working out their problems. Some are letting go, I guess, and moving on.
Right.
But some, I guess, could be kind of stuck in the between, maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, I think we're thinking about it in the level of like low, middle, high kind of thing. You know what I mean? And because we're trying to understand it. And, I've asked about hell many times, and I've got that there is no hell. So, I've got that many times from spirit, and some mediums will tell you there is no hell. Some are very religious, that were brought up religious, and they feel like there is a hell, I asked for Nicole Brown Simpson, and I asked for OJ in the same session. Now, I asked for them on different times, but, when I asked for Nicole, she was in the light. She was really good. She was around her daughter Sydney. Her who is still alive, and so she's around her adult daughter here, her children. She was okay. She was good. She's enjoying her afterlife, she said. When I asked for OJ, excuse me. When I asked for OJ, he talked about being in fear. He talked about being in darkness. He talked about falling. And he did not want to admit anything that he did.
Really?
So I don't want to answer that question. I don't want to answer.
Even in death.
Some people were. I'm sorry.
Even in death, he doesn't admit.
Correct. And you don't have to.
Okay.
Because who is making you do this? When do we lose free will? We do not lose free will, ever. Okay? God isn't going to just take you to heaven. You have to want to go. You have to want to meet him. I mean, what kind of loving higher power would that be, is whether you accepted him or not, and he's like, you're coming with me, you're coming to heaven, and you're going to be in the light, and you're going to love me. You have to really want that.
Yeah.
And you have to be open to that. And if you never really gave thought to that, you'll still be okay on the other side. But now there's another part of your journey starting on the other side.
Yes.
This is why I tell people, don't live your life here only focused on material things, wealth, status, beauty. You're wasting your time. That doesn't mean don't do these things, don't have a job, and don't live your life, and don't take care of yourself, and don't, have projects and goals and things to do. Yeah, and if you want to buy a nice house and because you have it, and you want to buy some nice clothes, that's fine. All of that's great. But Jesus said it best, wear the world like a loose garment. So you could wear it like a loose garment. He didn't say go naked. He just said wear it like a loose garment. So, don't hold on to it. You can't take any of this stuff with you. So what you can take with you is the work that you've done here, meaning the work on yourself.
Yeah.
The connection with your higher power that you've worked on, whoever that may be, whether that's Buddha, Allah, Krishna, Jesus, okay, whoever that Mahavatar is for you. Work on that with them and become closer with them. Give love freely when you can. Not conditional love, unconditional love. And none of us really know what unconditional love is. It's all conditional. If someone were giving love to someone and they're not giving it back, eventually we're going to be like, we're going to cut that off. You know what I mean? So there's a condition to it. But we're trying to learn, when you learn that stuff, you then reach heaven before you die. That way, when you get to the other side, you're already there. You're already in the light and experiencing the light. You're already reuniting with your loved ones. You already have a working connection with your higher power, with your loving source, God. And then you can continue on your journey. But some people die and they're like, man, I had riches here. I had fame. I had it all worked out. And then they go to the other side, and it's the great equalizer.
Doesn't even matter when you get over there. Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
It doesn't even matter at that point when you pass on, these materialistic things don't matter.
Right. And you know what I mean? So that's why I think that's why I try to tell people, hope is what I am. That's like my channel, Hope Paranormal, Hope, the channel. And so Hope originally was an acronym for helpers of paranormal entities, because I was doing a lot of work trying to pray and help spirit that I was talking to. Some were talking about being stuck or looking for the light. I was going to abandoned buildings and cemeteries and other places. So that's what Hope used to stand for. Over the 13 years, it's evolved to a different type of acronym, which is now helping other people evolve. That's really what it's become for me.
That's
and it's
beautiful.
Because I'm not just working with the souls on the other side. I'm working with the souls in the bodies, which is, you and I. And so that's what I'm trying to help people understand. And I'm smashing misconceptions all the time. I think that's the really cool thing about it.
That's beautiful. I love that. Helping people evolve. I love it. And that's very true what you're saying. I guess that's why some people who pass on, when they go on the other side, if they're still working on their things, well, they're still going to work on it over there. Or if they've resolved all their issues and have, are in a good place, then they're going to be in a good place there, but continue their journey, right? Like there's another journey that takes
That's
place.
why I tell people, anyone that's thinking about taking their own life, first of all, always call a hotline, and there's a lot of help out there, right? But I've had many people message me and say, what is out there, man? I've really been having a tough time, and I've been thinking about, ending it all.
Oh.
And I try to come at it with, not just no, don't do that. I do say that, of course. I always say that. But I always tell them, hey, listen, if there's something you're trying to escape here, you're not going to get away from it over there.
Yeah.
So think twice about it, because I don't want you to do that. I'm glad you're reaching out. I'm glad you're talking about it. Please, I always give them the hotline number, because I'm not a specialist, but I always say, don't think that just by ending it, it's going to remove all your problems. You still will have to deal with the emotional baggage and the stuff that you were dealing with when you were here. So let's see if we can help you work through this now. And, and that I think has made a difference for many.
Absolutely. Deal with your problems now. Don't bring them over to the other side.
Correct.
Wow. That's amazing. I wanted to talk a little bit about your book, Finding Hope in the Afterlife. Sure. It touches on some profound themes. What motivated you to write that?
So I love writing. I've written scripts. I've done a lot of writing before, but I've never written a book. I was told many years ago I would write a book. And I'm like, maybe. You know what I mean? Kind of like, I don't know. I just wasn't as excited about it. And then I started hearing my guides come through the box, and they were saying, you have to start the book. You have to start the book. Start the book. They kept on talking about it in every session. So I was like, holy crap. Like, I really have to start the book. So then the daunting task came where I was like, all right, I got to do this. And I started to I put a timeline together. And what I find to be interesting is that a lot of that book felt like it was being written with me as a team, as opposed to me writing it by myself. So I was getting a lot of downloads and input as I was doing it, from guides, from Jesus, my higher power, from my guru, Paramahansa Yogananda. So there was a lot of information that was coming. There were things that I didn't want to put in the book because they were too personal. And I would skip over that part of my life. And then I would be brought back to it, and they would say, no, you have to put that in there. And I'm like, oh my God, really? This is so personal, and I don't want to know if I want to put this in there. And, or there were things that I couldn't figure out. Something was missing, and then they would give me the answer of what it was that was missing. Piece of research. Sometimes I was doing, because it's not, it's about my life. The first part of it, like the first few chapters, are about me in the sense of my story. I've had a very troubled past growing up. I had a great childhood, came from a wonderful middle-class family, 2 loving parents. So it goes to show you that it's not just, circumstances, yes, do help, create what's going on in a person's life. But I mean, I had 2 great parents, and I had, but I do have addiction, right? I did have addiction. I'm a recovering, addict and alcoholic of 20 years. So 20 years in June. And, it was a very tough time. I had to go away. I went away, when I was a young guy, over 20 years ago. I went to prison for 2.5 years, and it was a crazy deal. And I got out with nothing and had no place to live, no job, no money. And I had to kind of start over completely. And I did very well for myself when I got out. I made millions of dollars in business and was able to secure my life. But I knew that something else was going on for me, where I had this spiritual journey to embark on. So I was given this opportunity to, pay off my house and buy some other property and put money away in the bank, investments and stuff. And then I started to dive into really what is going on the other side. And I had my connection with my higher power at that time. And that's when I started to pick up, so many other things. But the book goes into that, but it goes into my research. It talks about the Bible, what was left out, what was omitted, what was changed. It talks about, Yogananda, his journey. It goes into so many other aspects. So it's really, an amazing book, and I can't take credit for it because I feel like there were so
Everyone
many
helped
others.
you.
Yeah, for sure.
I had written a book too, actually, called Ghosted MD. And the way it happened for me was I was lying down. I heard, hey, in my ear. And it just kind of like it felt like a spirit. So I just kind of created this whole story based on that. And I filmed the TV pilot and actually just won a bunch of awards at some film festivals. So you'll probably be seeing. But what happened to me a few years back is I was sleeping, or I think in a half sleep state. And this is when a lot of weird things can happen. I hear, I see all these weird things happen. And am I right? Is that when it usually happens?
Yes.
Or, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I call it this half sleep state. I don't know, and basically, I was in that state, and I heard like, "Hey," in my ear, and I kind of like got angry at it. I made it go away, but it kind of I would say sparked this whole story in my head. So I started writing in 2020 during COVID, and I wrote a few, like 4 books. And I had gone to a psychic years ago who told me I was going to write 12 books one day. So I was like, 12 books, that's a lot of books. But but in 2020, I wrote 4. And this story that I wrote called Ghosted, actually, we filmed the TV pilot because I had TV series back in the day, right before COVID. And so I had my crew, we did a TV pilot, and we just submitted to some film festivals and already got a bunch of awards, which is really cool.
That's awesome.
So
wow.
You're probably going to see about,
amazing.
So you're probably going to hear about it or see about Ghosted MD soon. But it just really was always so fascinating to me, this whole topic. And I find a lot of people can probably, like, if you pay attention, a lot of people can be intuitive, and you just have to pay attention, I think. Like, maybe obviously there's others that are more, than others, but it's just
and everyone is intuitive,
right?
And it's not. I mean, yes, some people have it more awakened, but everyone can tune in and receive messages intuitively, or even go one step further. They can use equipment if they ever wanted to. I mean, just using my app is something that anyone can do, and I just I tell people that you're the one with the connection, and it's you can do it. Anyone can do it. So it's really cool because, that state when you're sleeping, right before you go to sleep, is I've had spirit come to me and talk to me at that time. So that's really cool. And you were told the same kind of thing. You're going to write this many books, and you're fulfilling that, that destiny, it sounds like. That's fantastic. It's really cool. I look forward to checking that out.
Oh, yes. I mean, I have a bunch of stories to tell you about. For me, it's been happening since I was 8 years old, but like where I've heard spirits, I've seen spirits, I always wondered though, like, or is it possible that some are demonic? Like, I do have to be careful.
You're more powerful. We are all more powerful than we think.
Okay.
It's like having the keys to a Lamborghini and we think we drive a Honda Civic. We just don't know the capability of the vehicle we're in. We just don't know the features. We don't know the strength. We keep idling down the road, but yet we could hit 120 in 60 seconds. You know what I mean? Like, we really could, we can do a lot. We can protect ourselves. We have that protection. We're more powerful. If we demand something leave, if we're not comfortable with it, they have to leave. There are cases that people are dealing with something, but that is still kind of a part of their journey for whatever reason. Karma is a big deal, and it is real, and we do have to work through a lot of karma that we've accumulated from previous lives. Reincarnation is real. Previous lives are real. Karma is a system that is pretty perfect because you're not going to be judged by God. God is all loving, all compassion, non-judgmental, but it's us that we have to deal with. We have to face the reality of what we've done. So if there is something that we have to deal with, so sometimes people are dealing with things and it looks like it's happening to them as opposed to part of their journey, and it's part of their lesson that they're supposed to work through. And that's a tough thing to deal with. I mean, how do you tell a mother that lost a child that this is part of your journey? How do you, tell someone that, was a victim of a crime that this was a part of your journey? You know what I mean? And all things can be used for good, but it sucks when we're in the midst of something that is feeling very dark and, difficult,
Is there anything you would like to add, Josh?
So, as far as just anything that I would like to add to this, I would just say to people that, continue to seek, if you have a connection with your higher power, an understanding of that, a working faith, keep building on it. I understand there's a lot of fakes and frauds out there in religion, in this work that I do. That's a tough thing. Use discernment to try to, see, feel out what feels right to you. But keep seeking, and, anything that I'm offering, if anyone wants to learn more about what it is I'm doing, you can go to hopeparanormal.com. You could find my channel. I'm on TikTok. I've got over 500,000 people on there and 170,000 on YouTube. And, the book, the app, I have events that I hold. So I offer as many different things that I can for people to experience this on some level.
That's great. And your app, you said people can still download it?
On iOS, it's still free. It needs an updated version for Android, and there is an updated version coming for both. And that will be a limited free version with a more unlocked paid version that's there. So that is coming. But, for right now, iOS, it's still for free in the App Store.
Love it. I think kind of like what you said before, in my opinion, you can believe in any religion you want, but I think really you should follow God, follow Jesus. This is like...
I just want to say that, again, I think there's a lot of people that have brought Christ, Yeshua, a bad name just by certain ways that they act. It's a very kind of... and I just want to say that, Christ was for everybody. It had nothing to do with Christian or, Hebrew or anything. It's just that, so I would say discover the real version of that for you, and don't let anything get in the way of that connection, whoever that is for you, but don't let anyone get in the way of that connection. That's all. Well said.
And I totally agree with that. Jesus is the way. I had another dream where Jesus came into my dream, and he told me to, I didn't know it was Jesus. It was this nice man, very handsome man. And I was in a classroom like setting and with other students. And there was this man, he looked like he was in his 30s, brown hair, a little bit longer. And he told me to say the word. And I'm like, what, Elion? And he's like, yeah, say it again, Elion. So I said, Elion. And he said, okay, now go write it down. So he told me to go write it down on the board, on the school board, on the whiteboard. So I wrote it, and then he corrected because I didn't write it right. And then I woke up because the alarm, woke me up for work. And then I woke up in the morning, and I'm like, Elion, what the heck does that mean? And I had to look it up. And I looked it up, and it means God the highest. So I was like, wow, was that Jesus in my dream?
I bet. Right?
Wouldn't it? I was like, oh my God, Jesus came in my dream. So I did a little video about it, but I didn't say it was Jesus right away. I just kind of said that, this was an important dream. And I think what the message here is that he wanted me to share the word. So that's what it was. So that's why I actually started this new podcast, with the idea that I want to talk about different topics that are important, but I wanted to also share the word. So that's why this topic was extremely very intriguing to me, but also very important to me. So I really hope others listen, watch, and can share their experiences.
Yeah, that's a really amazing story, and I've heard that before. How again, Christ will come to people that he wants them to share. I didn't write this book, but I'm just going to share it. It was by my guru, Paramahansa Yogananda, who's no longer living.
Oh.
But this is a book called The Yoga of Jesus. And it's a very thin book, but it's a really powerful book. And it really talks about the real Christ. And I recommend anyone that's interested in knowing about his word and not just it coming from a minister or pastor or priest or some kind of sect or denomination. This is non-denominational about Christ, and it really dives into some amazing stuff, and it's an important book. So I just wanted to share that. I think that's really fantastic that you had that experience. That's so that inspires me. I love that. Yeah.
And you know what? It inspired me actually to become like a reborn Christian, because even though I always, I kind of struggled with the concept of God over the years, but because I had all these experiences, paranormal experiences, I go, well, there's got to be a God. There's an afterlife. So who's kind of controlling all this or creating all this? It's got to be some higher power. So that's how I came to that conclusion as a child. But I think when I had this dream, it just kind of woke up something inside of me, and which a lot of my family find weird. They're like, what's going on with her? But no, I don't care anymore. I'm just like sharing my love for Christ. I don't care. And I think I wish more people would do that and just kind of be open to it. And really, he's just amazing. I love him so much. And it's so great, because so many people get fixated when you hear the name Jesus. A lot of times, here comes a Jesus freak. Here comes a holy roller, a Bible thumper, or whatever it is. And that is so far from the truth when you are really trying to get to know the real him and not someone's version of him that they've painted, some white, blue-eyed or whatever. It's gun-toting sometimes Jesus. Like that's not what we're talking about here. He's all love, all compassion, and non-judgment. And so again, I'm not getting into a preachy thing here. I'm just saying that I think it's fantastic that you shared that experience. You had that. It inspired you to want to do more about that. And again, I keep telling people, it's not to do with religion. So please remove that obstacle out of your way. If you have religion, that's fine too. If that works for you, that's great. I'm not knocking it, but if, you can love Christ and not have to go to a church. You can love Christ and not be a part of some big mega compound that, from the lost scriptures of St. Thomas, in the words of Christ, he said, break a twig, I am there, lift a stone, I am underneath it. And, those are the words of the Father, meaning that everywhere is his church. Yes.
Everywhere you can find him, within us. We're always looking externally outside of us for God. It's right here, and the connection's within us, the universe is within us. And so we have to continue to go within. It's an inside job. It's not an outside job, and that's something that I still have to remind myself after 13 years. I still have to remind myself, because I'll get outside of myself a lot of times. I got to go back within. Meditation is key, and people don't even understand that. And, it takes time, but whatever. It's really good.
It's not about religion. It's about the relationship with Christ.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And like anytime you have stress or anxiety or whatever, you just can give it all to God. Like,
amen.
Right?
And again, in a non-religious way. Amen to that. I believe. Amen means I believe. And I believe that. And that's exactly the truth.
Yeah.
Every day I turn my life and will over to him, and I ask him to come to me and guide my thoughts, my words, my actions. Now, some would say, well, aren't you just becoming like a non-entity then? Are you just becoming and I say, I'm okay with that. I have a personality. I have an opinion, a view. I have things to say, but, I'm a very self-centered, self-seeking person by nature. I understand that about myself. And if I'm not turning my life over, asking for help on a daily basis, asking for that guidance, I can get into myself, too much. So I can get out of it by meaning that, I can focus on someone else, help them, be of service. I could, sit quietly, focus on the breath. and it takes me within in a way that, I realize I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I'm not my brain. I am, there's consciousness, deeper connection that goes deeper, and then when I do that, I calm down.
Yeah.
I get into a much more even keel, state. That's a better way for me. So and I share that with others.
Yeah, it's really true. I used to stress all the time. I used to have a lot of anxiety, and now I just see a little pear and just breathe, and that's it. I just feel amazing.
Right.
So that's
I
great.
love that. That's perfect.
Thank you so much again. We can go on for hours. So thank you so much for coming on the show. I really hope this experience was as amazing as it was for me. So we'll have.
It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Really,
and
it was a great honor, and I appreciate you.
Thank you. And I hope we can talk again. And sure. I'd love to talk to you more again. So thank you so much. And to our listeners as well, if you have any stories you'd love to share, please reach out. I'd love to hear about them. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Nafsika's View. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please consider subscribing, sharing, and leaving a review. Your support helps us continue supporting or exploring these topics that inspire and connect. I was getting actually emotional at one point. I almost started crying. Were you? You almost started crying? I almost started crying. I felt the Holy Spirit.